Hi and welcome to my flooring prep work tutorial, part of my DIY hardwood flooring project. This is a comprehensive tutorial aimed to ensuring new floors are level, squeak-free, durable, and long-lasting. This video will help you prepare your subfloor for both nail-down and floating installation of new solid hardwood, engineered hardwood, laminate, and other types of new flooring. This was my first DIY hardwood flooring project. Though I am not a professional carpenter, I am a dedicated woodworker and homeowner and have successfully completed many interior and exterior home upgrades with my own hands. This project was at my mom's new build 3-level townhouse. It involved the full 3rd level with 2 bedrooms and walk-in closets, a stair landing and hallway, and 2 bathrooms with hardwood to tile transitions. The house was fully furnished when I started this work, so I prepped and completed the new floor install in 1 bedroom before moving on to the rest of the upstairs level. The first step was to remove the carpet. I used an X-Acto knife to cut the carpet into smaller, more manageable pieces and dispose of them on garbage day. I kept the flooring packs in the same space where they were going to be installed to acclimate them to the temperature and humidity in the room. And it gave me strength training opportunities as I had to shift them around the room as I worked. Closed-toe shoes, a dust mask, and safety glasses are important here, and I finally clued into this. Around the perimeter of the room, underneath the carpet, there are tack strips. Tack strips are spiky and dangerous. I did wear my safety goggles while breaking them into smaller pieces, and I rolled them up into the carpet underlay to dispose of them safely. The second step was to remove staples and other junk. I scraped off anything that was making the subfloor uneven, such as glue or thick layers of paint or anything else the contractors left behind. I used a flat screwdriver, chisel, and needle nose pliers to remove the staples. I sunk down any existing nails which were sticking up. This subfloor is a cheap OSB or oriented strand board. I removed some loose pieces of the OSB. This material folds apart easily. I removed the 100,000 staples used to staple down the foam underlay under the original carpet, and I removed the cedar shims used to level the carpet with the tile in this ensuite bathroom. I also removed all the large head nails that kept these cedar shims in place. I scraped off glue and thick paint spills left behind by the builder contractors. Near the tile threshold, I found some raised OSB sections forcing my floorboards to be above the surface of the tile. I scraped off some of the OSB to ensure my new flooring boards were perfectly flush with the surface of the tile. I also scraped off tile adhesive cement and grout, which would create unnecessary gaps between the new flooring boards and the existing aluminum tile threshold. I swept and vacuumed the floor thoroughly in between every step. Over here, the builder contractors had cut out a section of the OSB in the wrong spot for an air duct register. They did not do a very good job fixing their own mistake. This piece was loose and had a whole bunch of screws in the air. I removed the screws and used my own 2-inch flooring screws and actually sunk them into joists. The third step was to reinforce the OSB. Some of the builder's screws in the OSB subfloor were missing the joists underneath. I removed those loose screws. I located the loose screws by simply trying to sink them lower with my screwdriver. The ones that kept turning without sinking were the loose ones to remove. This minimized the obstacles from my nailer when installing the new hardwood boards. I still managed to have one of my nailer L-cleats bounce off a subfloor nail, which was covered and out of my sight. I located squeaks in the subfloor by walking around and pressing down over the perimeters of the OSB boards. I added more 2-inch flooring and decking screws to squeaky areas, which were mostly around the edges of the OSB panels. And just like that, there were no more squeaks. It was not too hard to locate joists because joists are lined up with the screws that are actually sunken. I located the joists by extrapolating from the existing sunken screws. The builder screws were about 3/8 of an inch shorter than the screws I used to reinforce the subfloor. Prepping the subfloor did take a long time. Taking extra time in this important step and ensuring proper prep work increases the integrity of the installation, and the final floor will last. If the subfloor is left uneven and not level, the new flooring nails may become loose over time, and the new floor may end up squeaky and problematic. The new hardwood flooring boards I'm using are 3/4 inch thick. This means lower flexibility than thinner boards and lower ability to contour to long waves in the subfloor. But at the same time, thicker boards are more forgiving when it comes to small unevenness and dips in the subfloor. Working in rows and along joists, I continued to reinforce the subfloor by looking for loose screws and replacing them with my longer flooring and decking screws. The next step was to look for any highs and lows or bumps and valleys in the subfloor. I used a long straight board with my level bar on top to locate any lows underneath and any highs that made the board wobble. After leveling my straight board, I measured the gaps underneath the board. The building code in my area says unevenness in the subfloor should be not more than 1/8 of an inch over a 6-foot span, and it should not slope more than 1/2 an inch per 6 feet or 25 millimeters per 1.8 meters. I marked the highs and lows to help me figure out where to fill in the lows and which highs to sand off. I found across the full width of the room there was about an 1/8 inch deep valley here, and in a second I will explain what I filled the valley with. From the reinforcement step in this project, I knew which way the joists were running. You can also identify the direction of the joists by locating them in the ceiling underneath the floor in question using a stud finder. When placing my board parallel to the joists underneath the OSB, I discovered that in this space there was not a slope running along or parallel to the joists, but some joists were higher than others, and so there were drops along my straight board when I placed it perpendicular to the joists underneath the OSB. In addition to this, most edges of each OSB panel were raised, and I could even tell that the builder contractors had sanded off most OSB panel seams. I used 4 grit sandpaper on my hand sander to sand down these areas more and bring the height of the bumps as low as possible without weakening the OSB by grinding off too much with a more impactful angle grinder. To save your sandpaper from ripping on loose screws and nails not previously sunken, it's a good idea to sand only after reinforcing the subfloor. And I discovered a shocking 1/2 inch drop over a 2-foot span here. There seems to be a general step here, a drop of about 1/2 an inch. The joists are running this way, and it seems like a few of the joists on this side of the room are 1/2 an inch higher than the rest of the joists going this way. I can't leave it as is. The next step was to level the subfloor. After some research, I decided to use asphalt roofing shingles and roofing felt to raise the low valleys of the subfloor. I bought these roofing shingles on clearance, not realizing they were not the best choice for my subfloor leveling because they had some overlapping sections for a 3D look, which I ended up having to peel off. It would have been much better to use flat or 2D shingles for the leveling purpose. I placed 1 to 3 layers of the modified 2D shingles as needed to raise the level of the low valleys in the subfloor and to meet the code for under 1/2 inch slope over a 6-foot span in the floor. I also wanted to make sure that my new floor was going to be level with the tile in the ensuite bathroom. The surface of the tile happened to be close to 3/4 of an inch above the subfloor, which matched the thickness of my new flooring boards, and I did not want to set that off during my shingle leveling process. To secure the shingles in place, it's best to use a good stapler. I did not have one and improvised with short flathead nails at the risk of the nails getting in the way of my flooring nailer. At this point, I decided to paint the room to ensure any paint splashes go on the subfloor instead of the new finished floor. I also thoroughly vacuumed the floor before the next step. The next step was to seal any major weak spots. Super cheap OSB was used here by the builder. I sealed major weak areas in the OSB, especially around the corners of each panel where there were many existing screw holes potentially causing the OSB to fall apart with time. I used the self-leveling caulking and PL glue. I had a whole bunch of self-leveling compound left over from a previous project. I decided to put it to good use and seal around the edges of the roofing shingles. I admit I went a little overboard. I discovered that some of the tile floor had hollow areas underneath. I did not want to risk tile buckling near the tile threshold in the future, so I added some of my own tile adhesive cement to these areas to fill in the gaps. I added a temporary board to keep the cement in place while it was curing. I removed the board the next day, and I scraped off the cured cement where necessary. The single flat shingles I was using were about 1/8 of an inch thick. I only needed to place the shingles parallel to the joists underneath the OSB. Since I was installing my new solid hardwood boards perpendicular to the joists as well as perpendicular to the shingles, all my flooring boards were perpendicular to any steps or drops from shingles down to bare subfloor. I still added roofing felt strips adjacent to the shingles in order to reduce the drop from thick shingle to bare subfloor, or make the transition more gradual along the last shingles down to the bare subfloor. In addition to shingles, I used a good thick roofing felt paper to level the subfloor even more precisely in multiple layers in some sections. On top of the multiple layers of smaller pieces of roofing felt, I stretched out a full-size layer to cover the full length of the room. Wax paper underlay can also be used, but some experts actually recommend roofing felt as an additional sound insulation for the floor. The next step was to trim the door frames. I placed a scrap piece of the new flooring board underneath my handsaw to trim off the MDF door frame with its solid wood doorstop trim. I also used my multi-tool for some of the door frame trimming. Trimming the door frames is easier than making irregular, exact cuts to the flooring boards. This way, the flooring boards slide right underneath the door frames. A hacksaw would probably be even better than a handsaw because its blade is much thinner and could be more precise. In the description below, I'm sharing the details and links for the tools and materials I used in this project. This is it for the floor prep work video. The subfloor is now ready for the really exciting and rewarding part. Thank you for watching my tutorial. If you enjoyed this video, check out my channel for more like it. Linked in the description below are videos related to the rest of this flooring DIY project, including hardwood floor installation, trim and baseboard installation, stair installation, and more. I want to hear from you. Please leave any questions in the comments below. I've done lots of enjoyable and cool DIY projects inside and outside the house. I am a mother of 4 medium-sized kids, many hobbies and interests, and a full-time job not related to these passions. Again, drop me a comment down below with any questions or suggestions so I can improve for my future videos. Any other tips and tricks on subfloor prep are more than welcome here. Thank you for watching. Until next time.